Spring has come and gone for the University of Utah, so one big question remains to be answered. Who is the backup quarterback after spring ball? Brandon Rose or Isaac Wilson? Let's discuss on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If it's your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments, as well as on social media, where you can follow our show at Locked On Utes on X. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our great and glorious friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined on today's show by Austin Eames from FanNation AllUtes to talk about the backup quarterback battle. Feels like ever since, it was even before Cam Rising. I was going to say it's ever since Cam Rising, the backup quarterback's been the rage, but then it was still a quarterback battle going even back to the spring before that. So this is all we've done is quarterback battle after quarterback battle, going back to ever since Tyler Huntley left, when it was Jake Bentley going against Cam Rising, and just year after year, it's been a thing. And yes, Cam's been the guy for a long time now, but backup quarterback battles have been all the rage up on the hill. This year, it was Brandon Rose and Isaac Wilson. We've gotten little tastes of their abilities at practice, but what's awesome in the spring game is we got the largest sample size we've gotten to see from these guys in 2024 yet. So talk about how each of them did. Wilson went 8 of 12, 165 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's what Wilson was able to do. Then Rose added 70 yards on 8 of 11 passing for the red team. As for who is the backup quarterback right now, it's a really interesting question because I believe Isaac Wilson looked like the better quarterback on Saturday. But I also remember thinking Brandon Rose looked like the better quarterback last year, and it felt like the tide was turning and they were going to start Bryson Barnes before the injury because of the experience and, just turnover questions and all things of that nature. Even though Wilson looked better, I believe if there was a game right now and Cam Rising was out, I believe Brandon Rose, because of the experience, trust of him to run more of the offense and not turn the ball over, because freshmen are more prone to do that than guys with experience. I believe Rose would be the starter if games were being played today, which I really wish they were after the tape we got of the spring game, by the way. But I do think Rose would be the starter if that was the case right now, where Utah needed a backup quarterback.
Yeah, it's almost crazy to me that we're having this conversation right now because, if Rose hadn't gotten injured last year during the spring camp,
I know
he could have had a chance to start instead of Bryson Barnes. And if he had started last season for an injured Cam Rising, one would assume that going into this season he would have the backup position secured. But alas, he didn't. And in the Las Vegas Bowl, Coach Whittingham wasn't so confident in playing him when Bryson Barnes wasn't doing the best. But you said it. Isaac Wilson has come out and he's shown off. I think people really forget he's 17. He should be getting ready for prom right now.
But he might be. I don't know when the Corner Canyon prom date is. That was not in the show prep. That is probably something he is preparing for, while also dicing up defenses on a random Saturday up on inside Rice Eccles Stadium.
Right, and it makes it even more impressive. You have a 17-year-old playing with guys that are 22, 23, some that are even 26 or
Cam Rising, whatever he is at this point.
Yeah, 24, 25, but he's playing with guys that are adults and he's a teenager. And we all saw it during the spring game. You said it, 8 for 12, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns. And his balls looked good. I think he had one ball that was his touchdown to Landon King. It was just a frozen rope right down the seam for a touchdown. And you watch that play and your jaw drops. You're like,
yes,
he's 17 and he can do that. But you're right. Brandon Rose, I think if we talk about, yes, he had an underwhelming performance in the spring game, but as we know, the spring game isn't everything. We have to look at the entire spring and even the fall, which is coming up. And Brandon's taken most of the QB2 snaps during spring practices. And I know, his performance in the spring game wasn't the best, but he got better once he played with the first team and he played with those guys who are really going to be getting reps during the regular season. And I think you said it. His knowledge of the offense is better than Wilson's. His just ability to not turn the ball over, I think, is more refined than Wilson's. And that's no knock on Wilson. I mean, he's young, right? And I think he'll come along, but it's close. It's a lot closer than I think initially thought maybe a month or two ago.
I definitely agree with that. I love the point you brought up about spring ball as well and taking everything with a grain of salt. We all wish we could have things back in life. I remember at one point I made a take on this show about Mackay Cope having like a monster season, and most of that on one's playing spring ball, an unreal one-handed catch from a couple of years ago. And obviously his career at the University of Utah never really materialized come there. But that was an example of me, as a lot of people do often do, overreacting to a singular play like that. So that's where it is, to your point, good to be like, okay, what's the totality of the body of work? Devon Vele, when he popped off in spring ball, that was all the hype he had gotten throughout camp, then showed out during the game. That made sense. That's what we're all still so high on Dorian Singer, right? And what he was able to do. So going back to this quarterback debate and battle, though, too, the other thing I talked about this on yesterday's show. I did not think Rose's supporting cast did him a ton of favors. I thought the offensive line in particular did not play great, so he was forced to scramble and kind of make throws and do things on the move. And would he have to do that in games? Yes, in stretches. But he didn't have also the top guys out there. Those were the guys that Cam Rising, of course, had the luxury of throwing to, as the Dorian Singers and they got Brant Keithy's of the world and those talented players like that too. He still had some talented guys there too, but like I said, they didn't play as well. You know, some of the top guys defensively for Utah were also going at him there. So you can't do everything when you're on offense. So you give Rose basically had subpar talent, at least for how they performed on Saturday at times when the defense was clicking more too. And that's why I'm not throwing all of the blame on him. And once again, when I say subpar talent, I'm not talking about overall as these guys in general. I'm talking about how they looked on Saturday. That's where I thought their performance was less than ideal, at least in the reps that we were able to see on that Saturday scrimmage. But going back to Wilson, last thing I'll say really quick, because you hinted at it already. So impressed with him. Just the poise, the passes to King, his just command of the offense I thought was good. You heard Yogi Roth talking about that's not a type of play a freshman normally makes. And as I said yesterday too, he's not even really a freshman. Just the ball looks so good. His throwing motion, the zip on the passes. I'm really fired up about what Wilson can be in this offense. And I think you're right, Austin. I think it's going to be a really close and fascinating battle to watch play out in fall camp, because while I believe Rose narrowly has the job at this moment, if Coach Whittingham had to pick, there's a reason I use the word narrowly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't say it much better. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Wilson's talented. Rose knows the offense, and he's got a good arm. I mean, I think sometimes people knock on his arm and knock on his accuracy, and yes, I think he needs to tame the arm a little bit. He had some overthrows, but he played good. He played good when, like you said, he played with the same cast that Cam was playing with, or those first team guys. He came out of his shell a little bit and started performing better. I did notice that a lot of his completions were checkdowns and other routes by running backs. So I think he was a little bit less confident after the start of the game when he struggled a little bit. So I really hope going forward that Brandon Rose can just continue gaining confidence in his own ability. And I think the perfect way to do that is a close QB competition with Isaac. But yeah, Isaac's coming along fast. And I mean, even if he doesn't get the backup role this season, we can look forward to next season. And I don't know, I think he has a clear path to becoming this team starter after Cam Rising leaves. And if his spring camp, when he's a teenager, is any indication, I think he's only going to get better.
It definitely feels that way. Really excited about Wilson. I mean, you just can't look much better in your very first ever game. I was worried he was going to turn it over. And yes, once again, he missed throws, all the things of that nature still, of course. But it was pretty close to a flawless performance for what you would expect out of a guy who's not even technically a freshman. So really excited about what Wilson can do. And I think Rose can still do some strong things. Rose is more than capable, if he is the backup, of being this team's Bryson Barnes and winning them a game against a team that would, like with Cam, they'd probably beat pretty decently. But with Rose, it's like, okay, we just got to get by here, which is what they did with Bryson a lot last year. So that's where you feel good there. But a lot to talk about in the back of quarterbacks. And, we'll even tomorrow's show, I'm going to be talking about if they should add some, go into the transfer portal. That's something we'll also be diving into. But I want to talk now, not get off the quarterbacks level. We've talked a lot about the quarterbacks already. They get all the shine. I want to talk about the wide receivers. Who's wide receiver 1? Who's wide receiver 2? Who's wide receiver 3 after spring? We're going to be diving into that in one moment. First, though, I want to tell you about our great friends at FanDuel. It's playoff time, and the NBA, NHL, and baseball season is now in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, capital LNO, and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And speaking of all the action we have going on in the NBA, there are some really fun games currently out there right now. We got these awesome play-in games coming up, whether it's the Lakers, Pelicans. I'm going to roll with the Lakers in that one. Eastern Conference has got some fun ones. We get the Heat and the Sixers in the first round too. Steph Curry versus De'Aaron Fox. Lots of great action going on FanDuel. So make sure you guys head over to FanDuel, your home for all of the great major league and pro action across all of the various sports leagues. So head over to FanDuel today. Also want to talk to you all about another one of our sponsors at Locked On Network. This is a brand new sponsor too. It's our friends at Monopoly Go. I've been told I'm a competitive person. Okay, I am pretty competitive, but now I do have a competitive side, and now I can let it out too, because that's why I'm a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly, where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with your friends. I can charge them rent on my income properties, just like classic Monopoly, but now I can also rob their vaults of riches for myself, and the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can also team up with your friends, people all around the world, in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in on the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store, on Google Play. Once again, download Monopoly Go today. All right, Austin, let's talk about the wide receivers. We're going to go down, talk about 1, 2, 3, maybe even who just missed the cut there like that. Yeah. I got a really hot take right here, Austin. Dorian Singer looked pretty good. I think he's the wide receiver 1 currently right now. You can react to that how you want.
I agree, JT. Dorian, man, amazing. He had, what was it, 5
92 yards.
92 yards.
Mm-hmm. You got
it. We've been hearing all spring practice that, he has this chemistry with Cam Rising. They've been having private throwing sessions, and I believe it after what we saw on Saturday. I mean, the connection was real, and Dorian looks talented. I think he's going to be the guy. I think he's going to be that X receiver, the guy that you just go to in the offense. And I think, yes, okay, you have last year, USC. It was a down year. He had 24 receptions, 289 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And then the year before that with Arizona, it was completely different. 66 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. Judging by the spring, I think Utah is going to get 2022 Dorian Singer. I don't know. Just the connection he has with Cam, just the fact that he can be the #1 wide receiver in this offense, unlike with USC last year. I think he has a real shot to go far this year.
I absolutely agree. I think he's got a chance to get back to the 1,000-yard mark and so many of the other high milestones that you kind of hinted at there too, Austin. So I'm really excited to see Singer. And top receiver feels like a pretty sure bet. So does number 2. And we are excluding, yes, I know Brant Keithy is obviously probably the top pass catcher. Him and Singer going back and forth for that. Money Parks had 3 receptions for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. Him and Cam, they've just always been pretty much on the same, or not always, but really towards the end of the 22 season, it felt like they were really on to something. And that's where it's such a bummer that we didn't get to see that last year. But I'm a big Money fan. I think that Cam is going to be able to unlock his skills. Money's best play and Utah's best offensive play was their very first play of the entire season. That will not be the case this fall. I think Money and Cam are going to be hooking up for plenty of big games there. There's not going to be like 5 73-yard receptions. I don't think, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think there will be several plays where boom, 30, 40-yard ball. Who got it? It's of course the guy who takes the top off the defense, and that will continue to be money parks for Utah.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the big playability during the spring game, right? He had those. He had that. I think it was a 30-something yard touchdown reception from Cam Rising, right on the money. And I mean, you said it. His biggest play last season was in the first game when he caught. He just beat the defense downfield and caught that long touchdown. I think it was a touchdown. I can't really remember, but
it does. Yeah.
Okay. I think he's going to be able to produce this year. He's kind of flown under the radar, which seems crazy to say, but I think a lot of people have been talking about Dorian Singer, Tayshaun Lyons, Dadrian Zipper, but Money Parks, I mean, old reliable. He's been with the team for a while. Yeah, maybe he didn't produce as much last season, but I think that's less of a knock on him and more of a knock on just the fact that like Utah's passing offense as a whole wasn't much of a factor last season.
As the great Tyler Huntley once said, do you say doo-doo or poo-poo? I can't remember off the top of my head.
One of the two, right?
One of the two, yeah. I'll look it up.
That's what it was. I mean, it wasn't much to write home about. But he had 13 catches, 293 yards, which, as crazy as it sounds, was, I think, behind Devon Vele, one of the most on the team. 3 touchdowns, including that big one at the start. But I think he's going to fit in real nicely behind Dorian Singer. I see him really playing into that Z receiver role where he's the smaller guy, but he's versatile. He can catch screens. He's fast. He can be flexed into like a running back receiver hybrid role. I think what you get with Money Parks is you get somebody that's really versatile. He can really slot in anywhere. I mean, he's fast. He has good hands, and his route running is phenomenal, and it's come a long way since he's come to the school. So I have to agree. I think it's funny that you say he's your number 2 guy, because before we did this, I wrote down my top 3 and I put him at number 2. So I have to agree with you.
Yeah, 2 for 2 so far. No crazy surprises yet. And of course, Tyler Huntley did it was poo-poo. I was correct in what I think I might have said doo-doo first, either way. But that is what Tyler Huntley, of course. We all remember that memorable quote, of course. But anyways, going on to wide receiver 3, let's see if we're different here, Austin. This is where it gets a little closer to me. We already talked earlier about how big chemistry is, whether it was Cam getting it with Money Parks towards the end of 22, him throwing to Dorian Singer back in the spring, before spring ball even started. I do think that wide receiver 3, by right now and by the time the season will roll around, will be Micah Pittman. I think their established connection.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. 3 for 3. I just think their established connection is going to end up being the reason that he edges out a guy like Munir McClain. And I think Pittman's skill sets kind of support himself as that kind of third receiver a little bit in that kind of spot that Utah would want to utilize him when you're kind of bringing everyone together, right? We got the do-it-all guy in Singer, your true number 1 receiver. Money Parks can take the top off the defense. Then Pittman is, there's a reason he was a returner, right? He can do things in the screen game, dangerous over the middle of the field too, all of those things in that area too. I think Munir McClain will have a big role with this team still. I know this has always been the thing with Munir, but there's just been those signs of special plays. And this is different than the Mekhi Cope thing I was talking about earlier. I truly do believe that I think Munir is going to make a couple of really nice plays inside Rice-Eccles Stadium, like he got a chance to do a few times last year. So Munir would be the guy who just missed the cut for me too. But Pittman, due to the chemistry and the unique skill set, he's looked really good in spring too. I think he's going to end up being wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I mean, I said it 3 for 3. I also had Micah in that 3 slot, and yeah, it's a smaller wide receiver core, but I mean, I have Luca Caldarella on the end as that big guy who can come in. Yep. He's 6'4". He can make plays. Yeah, he had a big spring game. But getting back to Micah, I think, how often do you have 2 6th-year guys and one, I think Brant's a 7th-year guy? How often do you have that much experience on your offense? I mean, that's not something that you should take for granted. And I think if Micah can stay healthy, just that experience he brings is going to really do a lot for this offense. I've been watching him all spring at practice, and I think he might have maybe beaten by Dorian Singer, but I think he might have the best set of hands on the team. I swear every ball that was thrown his way was caught. It was just sucked in. And his route running looked crispy. He looked healthy. He was sporting that no-hit jersey, but I mean, he looks healthy. He was running his routes with energy and explosiveness. So I think he's going to be one of those guys that he can fit into the slot. He can fit in other places. He can fit on the outside. Maybe we'll see him playing a similar role to oh geez, I'm blanking on the name. I'm just gonna move on. But I think he's gonna fit into the oh man, I'm gonna get grilled for this. Mikey Matthews. I got it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, just last year. Yeah.
We saw him playing a similar role to Mikey Matthews before he got injured. I think Mikey Matthews was the guy that came in and filled his role in the offense last season.
That's true.
So I think he might play a similar role this season. But I think the big question with Micah is, can he stay healthy?
I agree. It's going to be fun to see. Lots of fun Utah football still coming up. As I mentioned, we'll be talking some transfer portal stuff on tomorrow's show, so make sure you stick around for that. But don't leave just yet, because we got to talk about Utah basketball making a big Madsen edition. And no, I'm not talking about Gabe Maddison announcing he's coming back. I am talking about his brother, Mason Madsen, who's going to be coming to Utah. We're going to be diving into that in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes, our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn is the job site you need to help you find the best qualified candidates when you're hiring, especially for your small businesses, because you want to find those quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn, they're not just another job board. They have a vast network that helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role in a given month. Over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're looking on LinkedIn, if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. You can hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time and resources to hire. That's why LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process of hiring easier. They even have just launched a feature that helps you write the job descriptions. Another example of how they're making that process easier and even quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring, and you can join them today by going and posting your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege, all caps, no spaces, Locked On College. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, Austin, close this one out. A great get for the University of Utah team. They said they were trying to shake things up in the transfer portal, and they do decide to do one thing a little similar, bringing in a Madsen, but, that's worked out pretty well with the special things we saw Gabe Maddison do last year inside the Huntsman. So I am fired up that Utah is getting the 6'4" guard coming over from Boston College, averaged 8 points a game, shot 37% from three, was at Cincinnati earlier on with his brother, and I am fired up that Madsen, and hopefully Gabe is going to come back and play for me. Walked on senior day. I haven't seen anything like he's declaring. I don't know when the deadline to do all of that stuff is too. So at the moment, I think Gabe is going to come back and take the opportunity to play his brother, but we'll see how. Nothing like set in stone either way on that. So don't want to say this is for sure happening, this is for sure not happening. But either way, really excited about what Mason, I feel like, can bring to this team with him and Gabe. If Gabe does come back, knocking down threes at a high percentage this coming winter basketball season.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Gabe isn't coming back and he was just spoke so highly of the program that his brother wanted to come over. If so, thanks, Gabe. We appreciate it. But yes, I think it's more likely that, his brother's coming back because they want to play one last season together. Like you said, they played at Cincinnati a couple of years back. Gabe came to Utah. His brother went to Boston College where he played 2 seasons. And yeah, who wouldn't want to add another sharpshooter to the roster? He shot 159 3-pointers last season. So the volume is there. He made, like you said, 37% of them. And Utah needs a shooter, right? We just lost Roley. And I think Mason is going to fit well within this squad. Obviously, it helps that his brother's here. He can practice with him. He can just form that connection. He already has that chemistry. But yeah, I am excited to have Mason on this team. A guy that played for a big program, went to the NIT last year like Utah did, and I think he's going to fit good on this squad. And like I said already, can never complain when you're adding more shooters to the team.
Yeah, Gabe broke the single season 3-point record last year with 103. Excited to see what he can do, what Mason can do, whether it's following in his footstep or they're trying to do it together. Going to be fun to check out the Running Utes when they're back in action in November, and made a couple additions now in the transfer portal, and we're going to continue to monitor their offseason movement. Speaking of, if you guys want to continue to monitor offseason movement for all Utah athletics, make sure you check out Austin's work at FanNation AllUtes. You can also give him a follow at Austin Eames on Twitter. Austin, thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, JT. It's my favorite thing to do. I love it.
We love having you on. Great stuff. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you tomorrow talking about the transfer portal and if Utah needs to go after a backup QB. We'll see you then.